Hello, me again. I want to talk about something today that I've been kind of putting off talking about publicly for quite a while now. Those of you who've been following me for years will know that in the past I've sometimes pushed the boundaries a little bit and talked about things that I knew were controversial, and I've never really been afraid to do that. But I know it sometimes puts people's backs up and you think, well, that's sometimes going to happen. But I've tried to kind of be a little bit calmer, let things slide, not make a big deal over some things. But there's one subject that I just keep having shoved in my face again all the time. And I feel now I've kind of got to a point where I can't really pretend it's not happening anymore. And it's this whole concept of ignoring bad behaviour and rewarding good behaviour. And I just don't feel we can carry on pretending that this isn't a problem. I don't want to criticise other trainers, and I've tried really hard to let people do what they want to do. How you run your business is up to you. But the problem for that is there are real world repercussions with that. I believe that there are dogs quite literally dying because of this concept, and we have to recognise that this is a problem, and there's no point in pretending it's not. And I hear all the time trainers telling other trainers that we shouldn't be criticising other trainers. We shouldn't be saying that there are trainers out there who aren't very good because, what they choose to do is up to them, or what I choose to do is up to me. But there's a problem with that, which is that if we, the experts, the ones who know better, don't tell the public that you need to be open-minded, that not all trainers are the same, then how will they know? How will they know there are some good trainers and some really not very good trainers? And for those of you who aren't aware, there are currently no regulations that are mandatory or compulsory for dog behaviourists or dog trainers. Anyone can do it. There are online courses out there. You can do a weekend course that will give you a diploma in canine behaviour. 2 days. You can do it. You can never have even seen a dog. You don't even know how to spell a dog. And within 2 days, you've got a certificate you can put on your website that says I have a diploma in canine behaviour. So the public have to be made aware, and how can they be aware if we, the ones who know this, don't tell anyone? Catalyst for me, and the reason why I'm doing this video, is a client I went and saw or spoke to last week. Now, she's an older person. She's got a Yorkshire Terrier, 5.5 years old, and she contacted me because she was at her wit's end. And I went out and worked with her. Things went really well. She then messaged me back, and I'm going to read you the review that she sent me. And she sent me this 2 days after I went and saw her. Okay, I'm getting old, got to put my glasses on. You wait to get to my age, boy. Takes me all night to do what I used to do all night. Anyway, so this was her message. When I first contacted Rob, I was at my wit's end. My 5-year-old Yorkshire Terrier had been hit by a speeding car 5 months previously. Although we were very fortunate, her physical injuries were not severe. Psychologically, however, was a very different story. She had totally regressed to the point she refused to go outside at all. I had been using a different, inverted commas, method of training and had been doing so for over 3 years. The method that she'd been using was she'd been working with a positive-only trainer. Remember that, over 3 years. And she worked very hard, this woman, I will say. She put the work in. She did exactly as she was told. She tried very hard. She was repeatedly in contact with the trainer. I'd employed this mode of training to gain Mia's confidence outside with me. I was recovering from a serious illness and recall, neither of which was successfully implemented. My dog ran in front of a car. And remember, this is 3.5 years after she'd started training with this trainer. Her dog still ran out and got hit by a car. And this was the thing that she had contacted the trainer for advice for, because she lives in she walks the dog on a field surrounded by roads, and her fear was that the dog would run out and get hit. So she's paid this trainer, and 3.5 years later, exactly what she was worried about happened. She's lucky to be alive. I was advised by my previous trainer to leave her be for a week or so. Don't try to make her go out. Something about cortisol levels needing to come down. Well, I followed that advice. The result, a totally agoraphobic dog. She refused even to go out into the front garden as she was so terrified. So this was the advice she was given after the dog had been run over. Well, just don't take her out. Just keep her indoors. Don't put her over threshold. Don't cause her any stress. My vet, thank God, recommended Rob, and I'm so glad he did. Within a couple of hours of him being here, Mia had totally relaxed. No staring out the window, eagerly awaiting something to bark at, but curled up fast asleep. Rob spent a considerable amount of time with us. He explained that my relationship with Mia needed to change and that the walks, or rather lack of, weren't the problem. The changes needed to start in our home. Goodness me, there's just not enough paper to explain all that I learned from Rob. His calm, friendly and very humorous personality helped tremendously. I felt relieved to learn I wasn't a dreadful mummy, but that I'd simply been told to do things with my dog that were doomed to fail. I learnt that her diet was all wrong, and since changing over to the food Rob recommended, I've noticed a considerable difference in Mia's behaviour. And the good bit, she loves it. So, not even 2 weeks later, and I'm over Blackheath with my dog. The first time for weeks, happily playing. No longer is it a battle of wills, physical strength, or bribing her with treats to drop the ball. Just a simple drop. Sometimes she gets a treat and sometimes not. But she's not doing it for treats. She's doing it because I've asked her to. I would willingly recommend Rob to anyone that is having problems with their dogs. He understands them inside and out, and his experience and knowledge is second to none. A huge thank you, Rob. Mia has got her mojo back. Now, as I say, this dog hadn't gone out for years, or for 8 months. It had been too scared to leave the house since this accident. And 2 days after I went and saw her, she contacted me and she said, "Oh my God, Rob, she's just asked me to take her for a walk." 2 days later, she's asked me to take her for a walk. I've taken her out. We've been out for 25 minutes, something they hadn't done for 8 months. And after 3.5 years of working with this trainer, how can this be? How is this okay? Why is the trainer not mortified that this woman has been paying her continually for 3.5 years and the dog still ran out into the road and got run over? Now, I might have been able to let it go, possibly, and not do this video. But the final straw for me was I was telling one of my trainers about it, and she commented that she's on a website that this woman trainer is also on, and she just that week put up a post asking people for help on how to teach her dog to recall. How to teach her dog. She's been taking money from this woman for 3.5 years on how to teach her dog to recall. And then the same week puts up a post asking for help teaching her own dog to recall. Morally, how has she been able to take this woman's money, knowing that in all this time, she's never been able to train her own dog to do the one thing that this woman was paying her for? And even when the woman's dog ran out and got hit by a car, all this woman had to say is, well, then don't take her out for a while. So I tried as much as I could to let, bygones be bygones, let people do what they want, but this has to stop. This has to stop. Virtually every client I see has seen 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 people before me, and all they've been told is to ignore this and reward that, and all that bad behavior will just go away. And you think, wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't it be nice if that worked? I really would love to be able to do that. And I consider myself a reward-based trainer. There's no dog I work with that I don't begin by trying to show the dog what the right behavior is and how to get paid for doing things correctly. Every dog I work with, I'm using food, I'm using toys, and that is my go-to. But the reason why I also say there have to be negative consequences is because that is part of science too. I hear all the time about modern science-based training, as though punishment, as though consequences are not part of science. Of course they are. Name me a single species on the planet that doesn't create consequences for making bad choices. There's a reason why none do. Not even us, the most intelligent species on the world, because we know that it wouldn't work. If we didn't have consequences for making bad choices, we would keep making them. And every animal on the planet understands that. But we're being led to believe there is one exception. It's this predatory animal that we choose to bring into our house, capable of killing us. And we want to say to that animal, you need no boundaries. You can do what you like. If you do the wrong thing, we'll just ignore you until you stop, and then we'll give you treats for stopping. Can we see why the age of dogs going into rescue has absolutely plummeted? When I first started in dog training, the average age of a dog going into rescue was 3 to 4 years. Now it's 8 months. This is catastrophic. And I believe the biggest cause, the single biggest cause, is crap dog trainers. Dog trainers who are giving out advice that will never, ever work, ever. This woman's advice here, there was more chance of me becoming head of the BMP than there was of that training ever working. But she stole this woman's money and kept leading her to believe that ultimately she would get the dog that she wanted, that she was never going to get. When I went and saw this woman with this nervous, anxious dog, the key to that dog's success was a rattle can. Now, you'll be screaming at the screen going, why would you use a punisher on a dog who's already fearful? Because one of the things that that dog needed was to be able to stop itself from working itself up into a state that it couldn't come back from. And when I went into the house, that dog barked and 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 wouldn't stop. The woman said if she goes to the toilet, she comes back in, the dog's barking. When she goes to make a cup of tea, the dog's barking. It had no self-control. So how was it going to be able to control itself around the things that massively overstimulated it when it couldn't control itself even over the little things? So I showed her how to use a rattle can. As part of the training, we did loads of food stuff and treat stuff. But I said to her, but we need to be able to say, no, darling, stop that. No, don't do that. And we did. And I showed her how to use this rattle can. Contrary to what you read and what this trainer had told her, the rattle can is not terrifying. I don't go bang and frighten the life out of the dog. The way we use it, I literally only had to tap it. And it was just enough to make the dog stop. Within 10 minutes of me using it, the dog had done something it never does, which is it curled up and it laid down on the sofa. She said it never does that. When I left her house, and the dog never barked again for the whole time I was there. When I left her house, she kept texting me all evening saying, I can't believe it. I've just got up to go and make a cup of tea. She didn't bark. She always barks. I've just been to the loo. She didn't bark. She always barks. Even right up until bedtime, she messaged me at like 10 o'clock. She said, I've just got into bed. She's come up with me. She sleeps on the bed. She didn't bark. And she said, but the irony is, she said, I haven't used the can since you left. Haven't had to use it. That was the same day I went and saw her. 2 days later, as I say, the dog was asking to go out. The dog's dropping the ball. She never could get the dog to drop the ball. She could never get the dog to stay. And she said, I've used the can probably 2 or 3 times since you saw me, which she sent to me yesterday. And it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now, since we worked together. All the dog really needed was a consequence. Everything else was already in place. She'd already been shown how to use treats and toys. The one piece of information she was missing was what had cost her dog almost its life. Was that when she said, click and treat, come, the dog said, but I don't want a treat. And so it ran out into the road and got hit by a car. The dog needed something that said, see, when I click and treat you, you are coming back. You don't have a choice. If that one piece of information had been given to the dog as well, it wouldn't have been hit by the car. So we just have to wake up and recognize this. There's no point in pretending anymore. So I wrote down some key points. I normally just go blah, 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 but I felt really passionate about this. So I wrote down some stuff to make sure that I didn't forget some of the key points that I wanted to make. So the glasses are going back on and here we go. So the first thing I wrote down was if the dog had died or the people driving the car had died, whose fault would this have been? Would it have been the owners? Would it have been the dogs? Or would it have been the trainer who failed to tell her in 3.5 years how to stop her dog from running out into the road? In my mind, the trainer would literally have had that blood on her hands. It would be her fault. She should have gathered it up and doused it all over the trainer's hands. So there you go. Now you have what you deserve, blood on your hands. Scandalous. As I said, I believe it's a fantastic theory. I would love to be able to just use rewards, to just reward good behaviour. It would be fantastic if we could do that. But there's a reason why, of all the positive only dog trainers I know, I don't know a single one, not a single one, that I would say had what I considered to be a well-behaved dog. Not one. Their dogs still jump up. Their dogs still pull on the lead. You can look on YouTube and you can see trainers still talking about, my dog's still a work in progress. The dog's like 4 years old. And you think, when does it stop being a work in progress? Oh, well, he's a rescue dog. No, you rescued him 5 years ago. He's not still a rescue dog. He's just a dog that you can't train. When does that happen? And if that can't happen for me as the trainer, When's it going to happen for the owner who has none of my skills? They're not a trainer, they're just a pet owner paying me for training that they can't even make work. So I love the theory, but the reality is we have to recognize it's not working. As I said, every species on the planet creates a consequence. The funny thing is, any of you who've watched a bitch weaning her puppies, what does she do? She doesn't ignore them suckling and then wait until they stop suckling and then give them a treat for stopping. She goes, "Arr, arr, arr," and she snaps them. Piss off. Feeding time's over. The shop's shut. Now, if using punishment created all the things I hear, it'll destroy the bond between the owner and the dog. It'll ruin your relationship. The dog will never trust you again. Why don't the puppies leave? Why aren't the puppies all terrified of their mother, who for days kept snapping at them every time they fed? Why aren't they afraid of her? Why is that bond not destroyed? Why doesn't that happen with any other species on the planet? All the mammals, that's how they feed. No, you're not having any more food. Watch dogs, wolves, when somebody screws up, they don't go, right, let's all turn our backs and just ignore him until he stops, and then we'll give him a treat when he stops. They go, ah! Dogs do it. If punishment on dogs didn't work, why do dogs use it? And why do they use so much more of it than we would ever use, or certainly that I would ever use? And why doesn't it destroy their relationship? Why don't wolves all leave the pack? Because, oh, he told me off, he growled and snapped it, he pinned me to the floor, why don't I leave? They must all be masochists, because they stay. It's just, again, this theory that is out there, but where is the evidence to back it up? There isn't any, because it doesn't happen in the animal kingdom anywhere. But we're being led to believe it will with your dog. If you tell your dog off, you'll destroy your relationship. He'll never trust you. You were probably told that by somebody who's failed to train their own dog, and so that's what they assume. Or they read it on some course written by somebody else who themselves never trained a dog. When you look at videos of trainers who are what I call PRAMA trainers, positive reinforcement and minimally aversive trainers. When you look at the videos they put up, they frequently put up videos of dogs that they're working with behaving as the owners wanted them to. And very quickly, they'll show the video of it today, behaving like a hooligan. They show the video of it tomorrow, not behaving like a hooligan. But when you look at the videos of positive-only trainers, what do we see? We see that they're using techniques that would never really stop the dog doing the things that he's doing. So it's all about ignoring this and ignoring that. And we'll do lots of trick training and fun and games. And that's what you see. Why do you see that? Because they can't put up videos of effective training, because the training, by their own admission, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It'll take a very long time. You can't expect miracles. Why not? That's what I'm paying you for. They can't even make it work quickly, but they want you to. Okay. So clients are always warned to expect the training to take a very long time. And I get the client saying it back to me, well, I was told that I should expect it to take a very long time. I was told to avoid things, manage things. If a dog's coming, go the other way. Well, what does the dog learn from that? How is my dog going to be less aggressive if I just take him the other way every time he sees another dog? And what they're told is, well, just keep him under threshold. Keep him under threshold. Well, how is he going to learn anything? A year later, 2 years later, you'll still be spinning around like Wonder Woman trying to avoid everything. What happens if there's a dog coming up the other way? Why can't we just tell him we don't want him to bark at the other dog and then reward him when he's not barking? I get owners who years later are still turning and going in the other direction because it will never work. A client doesn't pay you to say, if you've got a dog who's aggressive, put the dog in another room. They already knew that. They could have done that themselves. What they were paying you for is to tell them how to not have to put the dog in the other room. There's nothing wrong with management, but just be aware management is not the same as training. The client isn't paying you for management. Most of the management you're going to suggest, they already know how to do. What they want you to do is change the behavior of the dog. So they want you to advise them on how they can make that happen so they don't have to avoid it, so they don't have to put the dog out. And if you can't do that, then you're probably in the wrong profession. Oh, and just so you're clear, those of you who are so scathing about the use of consequences, aversive, punishment, call it what you will. Punishment and abuse are not the same thing. That's why you did it with your own children. You use levels of punishment on your own children. Well, that's because you know it works. And if you didn't, you would have out of control, badly behaved children. Why are we told it's perfectly acceptable to use consequences on our own children, but not on this animal capable of killing our own children. I don't think that's going to end well. This is not rocket science. This is just common sense. And that's why every species on the planet recognizes it, including us. It's just that there's some crazy people out there who are going to tell you that even though dogs use it on other dogs, we shouldn't. Yeah, go and see those people's dogs. So the last thing I wanted to say was I would urge every behaviourist, trainer, call yourself what you will, who is using positively only techniques to really take a look back at your clients and think, okay, how many of those clients, honestly, do I feel ended up with the dog that they wanted? That their aggression is fixed, that the separation anxiety is fixed, the pulling on the lead is fixed. The dog doesn't do that anymore. Because let me tell you, most of the clients I see who've had a positive only trainer out to them, I say to them, is there any one thing, even one thing, that you went to them with and it isn't the case anymore? The dog doesn't do it at all anymore. And I'm still waiting for a client to say, yes, there was one thing that never happens anymore. And I would urge you, before you carry on doing this and possibly setting your clients up to fail, just do that. Just go back through your list of clients, maybe contact some of them and say, what behaviors did you come to me with that have completely gone away? And what you'll find is the answer is very low. And the reason is because positive only training very simply only works as long as you've got something the dog wants more than the thing he wants to do. As soon as that's not the case, the training fails. As soon as he wants the squirrel more than he wants the treat, as soon as he wants to run out into the road more than he wants the toy, as soon as he wants to jump up on the person more than the thing that you're offering to distract it, the training is going to fail because there's no reason for him to not do it. So please, please think very carefully. Really weigh up whether or not what you're giving the client is what they're paying you for. If not, you may be setting up dogs to fail and you may be another one of those people that ends up with blood on your hands. I got it off my chest. Don't need to discuss it anymore. I'm done. If you want to row about it with me, bring it on. Hopefully some of you will say, okay, I get that that makes sense. Watch how many people don't like or share this post, even though they agree with it, because they're worried about the repercussion from positive only trainers if they dare to like or share this video. And therein lies the problem. The most hostile people I know in dog training is positive only dog trainers. Imagine that. Have a good day.